Being introduced. What do you think about the new hire for the athletic department?
I think it's amazing, man. Home run, maybe I try not to go to super extremes, but I think if they went out in the market, they would have a hard time finding somebody better, right? He's been here, he knows the fabric of this department, knows the people, he's well respected in the industry. And I think he's got a passion for this place that would be hard to find, right? And so I think he's going to do a lot of really good things. I think his experience being away from this place for a while will help kind of bring a new perspective, and I'm excited to get to work with him.
Him being here for 4 years back at Oklahoma State, what's kind of your relationship with him?
Well, we spent a lot of time together. In fact, we kind of got started around the same time here, and so kind of learning in new roles this place and what it would take to be successful. Been a strong advocate for our program. Obviously, he's got a basketball background with his dad and brothers being involved in the game. And so we spent a lot of time, not only professionally, but personally. Got to know his wife and children. And I look forward to continuing to work with him in a different capacity now. And hopefully, Coach Holder has some pretty high standards. I'm sure Chad will as well. And my job is to make sure that we meet those expectations.
Coach, it's kind of interesting that his first day is the first day of the NIL as well. What's your take on these new rules and what's it going to mean for college sports and your team?
Yeah, there's a lot of really good things that are possible out there. There's also some landmines out there that we don't know about. And so, I'm all for student rights. There's maybe not a bigger advocate for students having the opportunity to brand themselves and be who they are in the most authentic way possible. But they need to be careful, and they need to educate themselves because they could be treading some tough water here. One thing comes to my mind, right? Kid signs a contract, doesn't read all the details, and he's got to appear somewhere 10 times, or he owes them. Then he's supposed to make all this money, and then the tax bill comes also, and it could be an L for him. Right? And I don't think any of these kids are thinking about taking L's right now, and so they need to be mindful of getting as much information as possible, having someone who's professional that can help them before they sign anything, and then it's our part to make sure that there's resources here that can help them take advantage of it.
And obviously for someone like Cade, this came a year too late. What would it mean for a player like that? What can they?
I got a feeling he'll be fine. Just my hunch. But yeah, a year ago, this would have been prime for a guy like him to maximize whatever the market would go. The fair market value, right? It's individual, and it's kind of what somebody is willing to pay. So he's somebody that certainly could have taken great advantage of it, but he did great things for our program, and our job is to support him as he moves forward. And I look forward to 29 days from now being in New York City. Yeah, I think there's a lot of unanswered questions. I think the thought is not much right now. My gut is that'll evolve over time because who's going to be better to help, not facilitate. We don't need to broker deals. Hell, I don't want to do that. That's not really what I'm here for. But my job is to help educate them, maybe kind of keep them away from making decisions that aligns them with brands that maybe they don't want to be associated with, but they don't know, right? Someone's now connected to, I don't know, gambling deal or something that later down the line could be a negative for them. So I think it is incumbent upon coaches to help the kids understand where those landmines, like I talked about earlier, could be without necessarily saying, hey, call Jimmy at the car dealership over in Wichita and he's going to give you a free car for you. We don't need to be doing that.
Coach, can you answer this to Nathan just so it looks good?
Sure.
But, when you talk about Chad, almost his entire speech was thanking other people, and then he talked about the great program that he's inheriting. Can you talk about kind of ideals you think he brings to this program and what you think is going to come out of that?
Yeah, I think Chad and I, fortunately for me, are pretty aligned in our vision and how things are supposed to work within college athletics. That first and foremost is about the experience of student athletes and giving them every opportunity to become the best version of themselves. To really be able to take this and use it to create value out in the real world and go on in their lives to have success, whether it's in athletics or outside, which most of them are going to go try to pursue excellence outside of athletics from a playing perspective. And so I think he's a student-athlete-driven athletic director who's going to be really mindful that we have programming and resources available to help them maximize whatever resources that need to be available to them.
you've been able to get on the road again. Just kind of what was that like, finally being able to do that after a year?
It was awesome on one hand, but I forgot how exhausting it is, to be honest. I can't really talk about where I was specifically, but I think probably pretty easy to figure that out. There's a lot of good players out there that we need to be back engaged with, and so I love that part of my job, to be able to get out and see kids that I think can come in here and help us move towards building this program and to be consistently relevant on the national level. And I feel like the guys we're involved with are certainly ones that can help us do that.
Is Jenny less excited that you were able to get on the road again?
I don't know. We've been in the house for a year and a half. I think she was kind of cool with it, really. I mean, I don't know if my kids were that excited, but I think my wife was fine for a couple days. The summertime, she usually gets up and sees her family in Michigan anyway, so getting back to some normalcy is good for all of us.
Recruiting is such a big part of what you do. How open and what's your relationship like with Chad in terms of if you have a demand about certain things you need for recruiting? And that's such a big part of what you do. And your conversations you've already had with him, how open and helpful has he been so far?
He's been great. His dad was a coach, right? So when your dad's a coach, I would imagine one of the things you really understand is how important good players are, right? And so, growing up in that environment, he's got a perspective, not as a coach, but as somebody who watched it and lived it, understanding the impact that recruiting can have on, your ability to keep your job, do well, progress. So he's very much in line with what I think. The most important thing we do is take care of the guys we have here and make their experience great. It's not very far behind. Getting more players that can do that and have a good experience, and making sure that our facilities are on par, that our NIL policies are not behind the eight ball, that we're playing in the right places, traveling the right way, our staff's taken care of, because if you don't have good players, you just won't do this very well.
Bryce Thompson joined the program. How excited are you to have a player of his magnitude coming in?
I'm excited. He's a really talented kid. I wish, we had him last year, but, the kid made the choice that he thought was best at the time. I'm excited that he's here and that he's brought a sense of humility, I guess, from his experience. He didn't play as well as he probably thought he would have been able to as a freshman. And so he understands the work ahead of him. The thing that I feel most confident in is he knows he's coming here to be a part of a program that's headed the right direction. And I remember when we actually did sit down with him and talk about it, we showed him the clip of him getting a 5-second violation against our pressure defense. And that, now he gets to be on the other side. And I'm excited for him and his family to be a part of it because he's a really good kid and I think obviously a really, really good player.
You mentioned being on the road again. Has perception changed at all after a year with Cade and some growth with other guys? Has the perception of the program changed at all? You've noticed with recruits?
Yeah, a lot of this stuff gets reported somehow because we can't talk about it, but we've had a lot of really, really good players on our campus already in just 30 days since we started this thing. And a lot of the conversation is, man, we watched what happened here with a guy who had the reputation as he's supposed to be the best player in the country, and he was able to play with a level of freedom and comfort and had the success, not only from an individual standpoint, but got our team back to the tournament, won a game, and what's the next step? We certainly have the attention of some high-level prospects, which in some ways complicates our job because not everybody fits still. Right? It still has to be somebody who understands the work necessary to be successful here. And so we're mindful of that part of it, right? We want to get talented guys, expose them to our program, but we also want to make sure that they understand what success looks like inside the walls.
Obviously today's about Chad, but the guy who gave you your first break, their big break, is retiring as well with Coach Holder. What's the relationship like with him, and just what it feels like to see him, the guy who gave you this big break, hanging up the coat?
Yeah, there's some obviously really important people in my life. My parents, first and foremost, my children, my wife. You don't get very far down the line on the list of game changers of my life before you reach Mike Holder's name because he did. He took a chance at a time where it was probably one of the least popular things he could have done it, but he believed in me, and my job is to pay that forward and making sure that he always understands his value to what we do. And he challenged me to, don't just be satisfied with having a job, but raise the standard. Return us back to where our program is successful consistently, making a tournament, winning the Big 12 championship, making yourself relevant nationally, and having a chance to hang a banner. And, I wish they hung Final Four banners in there, to be honest. But the only banners in that building are national championship banners. So the standard is high, and that's what he always, strives to keep. And, that will not change with Chad. But a lot of it had to do with Coach Holder's vision. And his vision for me as a coach was that he believed that he wanted to hire somebody who, maybe didn't have the resume that people would just jump off the page, but that he believed from a character standpoint would uphold the standards that he wanted this program to represent.